Do you have a great admiration for people who don't even exist? Do you know histories of fake worlds better than you know your own? Do you geek out? If so, geek out with us. Here, now. It's the Geek for All Show.
It is the Geek for All Show. How you doing, folks? This evening, I'm not joined as usual by Professor Weirdfuck. He had an experiment that went horribly awry, so he can't be here right now. But I am joined by our head panelist, Winchester.
Hello.
And so since the professor wasn't here, I thought we could do a thing. So I don't know if people remember that red versus blue thing that was on years ago, like when Halo was popular and shit. You know, like where they did like they actually like filmed themselves like playing Halo and like you know like just using those graphics and everything to create this bizarre little comedy about like kind of the Halo multiplayer situation. And apparently that organization, Rooster Teeth, has spawned into this whole empire that, like, I was sort of aware of, but recently Winchester has been getting me into it, and there's some interesting things going on. Well, first of all, I left off Red versus Blue, I don't know, middle of high school somewhere, like, you know, pre-2010, just to give you some context on how long ago that was. And that show is like now into its 15th season and changed quite a bit. Like I looked at like a couple of like episodes and clips, and they've got like animation bits, and they've got like stop caption animation going on, and then just straight up like cartoon animation at some points. And then they still sometimes jump back to like the old school, like, hey, these are like Halo graphics and we're using it to talk and stuff.
Right.
So like so the show's been on like 15 years now, right? Like that's
they're currently airing their 14th season.
Their 14th season? Okay.
Yeah.
It's been on for a really long time, and it's weird because I went and tried to go check out some of the older episodes, and even as I've been looking with some of the fans and stuff, even the fans will admit the older episodes don't hold up all that well.
No, you get kind of a split. You get a split between those that love the classic 2003 episodes where they're just using the Xboxes to animate and everything like that. And then you get the fans that love the machinimation, the mocap. So yeah, it depends on who you talk to, but a lot of times I personally, like, I find myself zoning for seasons 1 through 4 and 5, because the humor doesn't necessarily hold up, or the animation definitely does not hold up.
Yeah, well, I mean, the animation, that's the thing. I feel like I'm in the middle on this, because the animation, I actually think the old way they did it was kind of charming. It was sort of like part of the point and everything.
Yeah.
So for me, it's weird that they've gone like to this stop motion and everything, or cap motion rather. But at the same time, like, from the couple of scenes that I have seen of the new stuff, like, the writing is way better now than it had been in the past. Like, the past is, like, because again, like, maybe a couple of years ago, like, I saw that Red vs. Blue had made it onto Netflix, and I was like, oh my god, I remember this was so awesome. I watched the first episode, and there were a couple of things I laughed at, but out of like the 3 things, 2 of them I was definitely laughing at because I remember thinking they were funny back in the day. And on self-reflection, it was like, I don't know if it's really all that funny anymore. Like, that was funny when I was like, 13 and I was playing Halo constantly, so like there was something to kind of connect to. Like, there was this speech like about like why are we here? This is seriously like a valley that has like no entrance or exit, which was pretty funny, but I remember being way more funny back in the day. Like, so it was weird. But now, like, from just a couple of clips that I've seen, the animation bugs me. But there are some really, what's the one scene? There's some doctor who's torturing a dude and like singing opera and shit, and then like the bunch of them are outside like, Chief, I'm scared. We're all scared. Like that, like the writing is just seriously, they've come like a long way with it in Red versus Blue, and so there's like actually a story now too, right? Because there was next to no story back in the day, and when they started developing it, it got weird, and time travel was involved way too quickly, and things got extra awkward.
Yeah, it got around season 2 and 3. It got a little. Now, if we're currently rewatching it, and if you rewatch it, you kind of see how they later seasons they took what they had just kind of made up on the spot in the first couple seasons and linked it together, which is pretty ingenious. But yeah, it's certain plot things, like one guy gives birth to an alien, and that's a whole plot. And there's a talking bomb named Andy, and there's all these certain kind of things that are not very. It's funny, but you don't necessarily get as emotionally involved until later seasons when you start actually getting very, very emotionally connected to the characters. And which is kind of dangerous too, because they like to rip your heart out and stomp on them.
Yeah, I can't say for Red vs. Blue because like I haven't been checking out that as much because I don't know, catching up with those first 5 seasons.
It's hard.
But they've been producing a lot of other things, and in particular, there's one thing to really note. This weird little show called Ruby. Well, that's, or at least how they pronounce it. It's RWBY.
Yeah.
So there's no vowels in it, but the agreed pronunciation is Ruby.
Yes.
Because it's the main character's name. So, but it's how to describe it? It's that like classic like anime chick fetishism where like all the heroes are women in kind of questionable outfits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's sort of a satire on that almost, while still kind of embracing like that genre. It's interesting, because like in a lot of those type of shows, like some of them actually are kind of good, but a lot of them are like just sexual romps as you'd expect them to be. And Ruby is one of the actual really good ones. And the other thing too is it's done in an anime sort of style, but it's hat motion.
Yeah.
And it looks kind of like you're watching a cutscene from like a video game or something the entire time. But like all of like the weirdness that is about it, like you sort of buy in this bizarre way. Like that's what I've noticed with Rooster Teeth, is that they kind of present this concept to you that's just like, why would this ever be a thing? But manage to just kind of get you, but
they get you invested.
They get you invested in it, and just like, all right,
buy it.
Yeah, you kind of they're really good about helping you suspend your disbelief.
Oh yeah, big time. With Ruby, so basically the creator of Ruby was Monty Ohm, who sadly passed away a couple years ago. But he started it. He was working on RVB, and it got to be, I think it was season 10 of RVB. He went to the one of the founders, Bernie. So Rooster Teeth was founded by 5 guys who started RVB in the spare bedroom of an apartment. He goes to Bernie and he's like, hey, I have this great idea for this TV show, or for this show, blah, 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 it's an anime, etc., etc. And Bernie goes, I will let you do whatever the fuck you want as long as you finish season 10 RVB. And Monty, who's the kind of guy who you're not sure if he functioned on sleep or just like plugged himself into his computer kind of guy, said, okay, finish season 10 and started this. And the big inspiration that I've read and seen in interviews, so the premise of Ruby is that there are these kids that go to, after they go to their primary schools, they go to an academy and they become hunters or huntresses, and they hunt what are called Grimm, and Grimm are monsters, and it's this whole world, and there's this whole dichotomy. And one of the big things is that their weapons are dual purpose. And Ruby's weapon is a scythe that's also a sniper rifle. And there's one scene in season 1 where she hooks the neck of this giant raven, shoots the rifle, and cuts the neck, just cuts clean through the neck of the raven, and just chops its head off. That was the primary reason Monty wanted to make this show. Like, it was that scene that he wanted to make that show.
Well, because it was specifically, and she like ran up a cliff with it, right? Like hooked on the scythe, and then for the final blow of it, like shot the sniper rifle, and then supposedly, like you're saying, like that was the entire inspiration of the show, which is kind of awesome.
But it's this whole big thing, and then there's magic involved. There's each hunter or huntress has a semblance, which is it's kind of like X-Men where they have their own special little power. they each have their own special weapons. One huntress is Yang, who has gauntlets that are also shotguns. So she powers her way, like she'll punch her way through the air and just kind of soar through scenes. And like just in the background, just you can hear her yelling because she's that kind of character. Or you've got somebody, Nora has this giant sledgehammer that's also a cannon.
Yeah, all of like half of the premise is that everybody's got a melee weapon that turns into a gun somehow.
Yeah, and it's everybody.
Yeah, everybody, like literally, like the bad guys, the good guys,
yep.
Everybody but the Grimm.
Yeah,
the
pretty
Grimm,
much.
Because that's the end. Because there's the Grimm who are like the monsters of the universe, but they're really more kind of a tool in like the actual antagonist plan. Kind of like they're naturally occurring, but they have less to do with the. No, they have a lot to do with the story. It's kind of complicated, but it's one of those like somebody's taking advantage of this bad situation to get things the way that they want it.
They're the minor. I would say they're the minor antagonist in this show.
Is that
because all shows kind of start off with, oh well, we have to fight these, or we have to do this, and this is our mission is to protect the world from these things. And then as shows go on, those missions become bigger and bigger, and that's kind of what the Grimm are. Is this minor antagonist is what they're supposed to be fighting, but then there are things behind the scenes that we see that are a little more, I guess you could say, manipulative of the situation. But yeah, and if you watch RWBY, the animation in the beginning is a little choppy.
Oh, it's very choppy, but it's kind of hilariously so. Actually, like that's the thing. Like, so anybody who's not like an actual character in the first season
is a shadow person.
It's literally just a silhouette. They don't animate.
They didn't have the money to animate them, or like the team, and that's the thing about Rooster Teeth is that. So it started off with 5 guys in an apartment. And now they tweeted about their most recent all company staff event. They had to rent out a movie theater to have enough room for all of their employees. Their current animation team is moving into a strip mall away from their actual studio because they don't have enough space.
Yay, expanding.
Right.
Well done, guys.
And that's kind of the thing is you can see, RVB is the same way, but RWBY, it's evolved way more. They're going into, actually, Volume 4 is premiering October 22nd, I think. And you can see the evolution of this animation where you've got, things morph through things. Some of the girls' hair doesn't like flow the way it's supposed to. It's kind of just a sheet or like a cape kind of thing. But then you watch is like the first fight scene. You could tell that they put their hearts and souls into animating this first fight scene because it's totally different than, anything else. And then you watch Volume 3, and just Volume 3 is eons beyond what they've been doing.
Yeah, no, the story is like incredible at that point. There's some really, really amazing moments that happen. The voice acting is phenomenal. And the voice acting has actually been very on point, I would say. It's gotten better, but it was still very good throughout the first couple of seasons. Man, 3, they really stepped their game up. But I really want to go back to the Shadow People for a second because, no, seriously, the best part about the Shadow People is that, and I don't know why they didn't have the thought to maybe, if that was going to be the case, okay, we can't animate anybody else. It's fine, I don't know why they didn't just keep the Shadow People in the background, because it's only once they enter the foreground that things start. And
things get a little weird.
The first episode is actually kind of amazing. Sit through the first episode expecting it to kind of be terrible in a production value kind of way, and just enjoy it because it's really actually hilarious. Like, so first you see the Shadow People and you kind of get that aspect of, oh, they clearly didn't have the budget. So, okay, cool. Then they kind of like start getting closer to the foreground. They're like in the mid-ground. They're not like in the foreground, but they've kind of escaped the background. And you're like, what the fuck's going on? Then they like walk in front of the main characters, and you're like, okay, what is then the final punchline on all of this is that there is then a scene where they go, oh, I wonder where she is, and there's just a sea of black with one spot of yellow hair that's actually fucking animate. I wonder where she could possibly. Okay, come on, now you're just fucking with me.
Yeah, there's some moments. But going back to the voice acting, so traditionally, like RVB was it was the 5 guys. They all had a character or 2 or 3, and then some of their friends or employees. And a lot of times it's new shows, especially it's their employees, and they all have they'll audition or they'll be like, oh, I think you'd be really good for this, blah, blah, blah. They have a lot of big voice actors. Elijah Wood is in RVB.
Really?
Yes, he plays. So if anybody, any listeners or anybody like that, if you get further into the Freelancer story arc, which is one of my favorites, the AIs that run Halo suit, the Spartan suits, he plays an AI. He's not in it for very long, but if you go on if you just Google Red vs. Blue and go to like IMDb, Elijah Wood is listed even above some of the main guys.
Well, because it's fucking Elijah
Because
Wood.
it's Elijah Wood.
Let's give him top billing on everything.
But with Ruby, Vic Mignogna's in it, who is from Picket Funimation
Yeah. show,
and Vic Mignogna is in it. Travis Willingham, I believe, is in it for a little bit. I know he's in their new show that I want to talk about too. They have a closer relationship with Funimation because one of the Rooster Teeth employees is actually in Fairy Tail now.
Oh, okay.
And I think he just got a spot in One Piece.
Oh, right on.
So they kind of share they share actors. I'm trying to think of who else is pretty big, but they have like if you're in the voice acting community or of the voice acting community, they don't pull D-list actors. They have some pretty great voice actors that you wouldn't think that this small kind of company would have.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it definitely, it has certainly at the very least also rubbed off on like the guys who like mainly take it off, because like they do a great job as well, along with these guys who they're pulling in to be like kind of big name lists to get their shit noticed, and also just to have some like awesome working on it.
And I think a lot of it is like, oh, you're a friend, let's go play.
Like, hey, come on, let's do this thing. Let's do this thing. But yeah, no, Ruby's gotten really excellent. Season 3 ended in this incredibly dark way, and I'm really interested to see where they're going to take it in 4, because, like, so they sort of set up, like, kind of, like, this dichotomy and this flow for the first couple of seasons, like, here's what the show's about, and then went, okay, now we're going to fuck with you. Now we're going to rip it all out from underneath you and make the original format for the show completely impossible to continue with. Like, it has to now change up. There is no choice. The story dictates.
Right.
Which was a very, very interesting move. Like, it was like, whoa, big shit. It was kind of like transitioning from the 3rd Harry Potter book to the 4th Harry Potter book.
That's almost exactly what
it was like, because for those first 3, you kind of had this formula. 3 got away from it a little bit, but in a way that you sort of expected, oh, this will be my reprieve, and then we'll go back to the formula, and then the 4th book happens, and you're like, nope, we've abandoned the formula entirely, and things are going to be a little bit different from here on out.
Or even the Harry Potter movies where, you watch, the first 2 by, directed by Christopher Columbus, it's happy, they show them on ABC Disney because it's the Christmas and it's so, light and airy, and then it gets dark and you're like, well, this is going to be different, and that's exactly what they did. They kind of just threw it in the
Although I've got a lot of
chopper
problems with that. We'll do Harry Potter, like, we probably should dedicate an episode to it.
Well, Fantastic Beasts comes out in November.
When Fantastic Beasts comes out, we'll definitely do an episode devoted to Harry Potter, but I actually have mild issues with the movies, starting with number 3. Not mild issues, huge issues. I'll rant about them later. Anyway, we're on Rooster Teeth. That's what we're trying to talk about right now. So you got obviously Red vs. Blue, which is their staple, and you got this show Ruby, which is just really phenomenal, and is going in a really exciting direction. Now you got this little, because they did a whole bunch of little projects over the summer, and I got to see just really one of them. Camp.
Camp is so good.
Okay. Here, so first of all, here's what I would like to say. Please don't make more seasons. I kind of love Camp the way that it is. Like, okay. So Camp, just to explain for anybody who hasn't seen it, Camp is like, it's like if South Park and Family Guy had a baby, but it was just wonderfully nihilistic.
Oh yeah.
So basically it's like about this terrible camp where they literally trick kids into coming by telling them that it's a camp for this and this and this, because they technically have it, because they'll set up a day to do science or whatever your stupid fucking camp thing is. But really it's just a fucking regular camp. It's just a camp.
Yep, camp.
Well, a little bit on the nose, but
yeah, exactly.
And there's like the 2 like main characters, I would say, are what's the kid's name?
Shit. I know he's played by Michael Wow, I cannot believe I just blanked on that. It's not David, because David's the camp counselor.
David's the camp counselor.
Okay, so talk about David first.
Okay,
while I look
so
this up because
one of the main
animated.
characters is David, who is this camp counselor, and he's got his partner Gwen, who doesn't give a fuck.
Gwen's so good. I love Gwen.
Gwen giveth no shits. Max is the kid. Okay, so Dave is entirely too happy to a really obnoxious point where you sort of feel like, come on, this has to be insincere until you realize that it's not.
He's very much the. So he went to camp. It's called Camp Campbell, but it gets broken down to Camp Camp. So Camp Campbell, he went as a kid. He believes in the camper mentality, the summer camp, the. Take the most optimistic person you've ever met and multiply him by about 10, and you might get David.
Yeah, and maybe David has arrived for you.
Yeah.
He just wants to share his love of camp for everybody.
Yep.
And for Max, he ain't having none of it. He's this little kid with like the foulest mouth imaginable. He'd get along great on the show.
I think one of his first lines is "Fuck you, David."
Yeah. Fuck you, David. Hey. Language. Actually, no, because I can't remember what it is, but he says "fuck you, David," and then explains like why camp is such horseshit,
yes.
basically.
Yeah.
And David's takeaway is, "Hey, language." Just utterly ignores the rest of it. But what's great is that okay, so there's a lot of like different kid characters though, and then like there's sort of like a trio that forms around Max. He gets like this other guy and this other girl who's hanging out with him, who arrive like in the first episode.
Yeah, they're the new people that you see just like any other show, like Scrubs or pretty much any other show, they're the new kids that you see through their lens, kind of, this camp.
They're the character for the audience to connect to.
Right.
And so the show only lasts like 12 episodes, and like it's foreseeable that it's like kind of like a 16-week camp that they started like a few weeks into or whatever. That's kind of like the feel that you get. And what's really great about it is that there is this whole like, it seems like it would be a show that like, okay, well, every episode is gonna be kind of random, and it is kind of. But once they've established something, it continues to the point where, for a joke, they just kind of had. It started raining and cats and dogs started falling from the sky in the background. They never left it. Every time from that point on where it rained, like cats and dogs.
It rained cats and dogs,
yeah,
literally, every single time.
It was only in the background though. Like cats and dogs never fell in the foreground anywhere. Always in the background.
But every time they did, and there were just little jokes, or it was all kind of running jokes that if you didn't, you could pick up wherever you wanted. Or you can pick up wherever you wanted, I guess would be the better term.
With maybe the exception of the last episode. Last episode you have to see everything. Like you can watch it out of, there is a continuity, but you can watch it out of order up until the last episode. So the last episode, there's actually this kind of amazing resolution between David and Max. Which you wouldn't expect. Like, you think they'd want to keep this thing going forever, but this is why I say, like, please don't do another season, because you ended it perfectly. Like, you really, really did. Like to the point, like, there's this resolution, and it's not like he's inspired everybody exactly, but there's this understanding that kind of takes place, and I won't ruin the best part of it, but, oh man, David's got a line that gives you this whole other respect for it. Like, I don't think I'll see David watching back on that show the same way ever again.
No.
There's just one line. It's just like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
Damn, Dave, all right. But at the very end of it, they have it like, so the theme song for a show is a song that David sings in the first episode, and at the very last episode, he's always trying to get Gwen to sing it, and Gwen's like, I fucking hate it. And Gwen sings the song at the very end of it, and it's corny and terribly campy, but I mean, it's a show called fucking Camp. You know what I mean? Like it really, really worked, and it was nice. It was sentimental without being overly corny. It hit like a really, really nice tone. It was like, this was adorable. Like, this was a cute little thing. And now end it. Seriously, I know your fans are gonna be like, I want to see more.
I want more.
I can understand it.
I selfishly want more.
Why would they ever go back to that camp? The camp is terrible. Like, it's not like anybody decides that the camp is good.
No, they all know it's terrible. The guy who runs it, Cameron Campbell, played by Travis Willingham.
So good.
If you've ever seen Full Metal Alchemist, he is Roy Mustang. And he is Cameron Campbell.
Looks kind of like Roy.
He does kinda. And he is this guy, he runs the camp, but he's super sketchy. Like, first episode, the FBI shows up and has a shootout on campgrounds, and Cameron Campbell uses one of the kids as a human shield.
It's amazing.
And and then he flies away in a helicopter.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular.
But just the animation. So we talked about Rooster Teeth kind of in their animation department kind of evolving. Camp starts phenomenally. Like, the reason at first I was like, oh, this show's gonna be dumb. Like, this is not gonna be my taste. I don't like South Park, Family Guy. Yeah, like certain animation, I'm not. Certain shows, and we've had the conversation about what we like and what we don't. This show got me 30 seconds in. Literally 30 seconds into the pilot.
What was it, the hawk grab?
It was the hawk grab. So they come in on the shot of the entrance to the camp, and David and Max are standing there, and they're at the end of this road, and you see them standing in the background, and you're like, oh, and there's a little bunny in the foreground, and you're like, oh, it's cute, and this is an innocent show, and then a hawk comes zipping down and snatches the bunny off the ground. I died. And then came to love Camp.
Yeah, no, it was, that was that moment definitely told me, like, oh, this is gonna be some dark shit. I like it.
It's a totally different thing.
Yeah, and it's really like they've got all these like great archetypes that are not like, it's weird because they're not classic archetypes of anything.
They're really not.
Except for what is the quartermaster? Does the quartermaster even have a name?
No, his name's Quartermaster.
His name is just Quartermaster.
He's the creepy camp
guy with the hook for a hand and everything. He is the only like actual like archetype that you could recognize as an archetype. Like, everybody else is, they're not even, okay, archetype's the wrong, caricature. Everybody is a caricature, but of like something very, very unique that you couldn't fit into a classic archetype of any kind.
Right.
And like, which is really, really cool, but like they're all, so like the main girl, whose name,
Nikki.
Nikki is out of her goddamn mind, and may be like a forest nymph. I'm not entirely sure. That episode they go into
She's
town
an
is weird.
agent of chaos. She's almost kind of like this feral little kid who just has no problem. Like, when she meets David, she bites him to establish dominance. Is kind of her thing.
And then talks about the, like, she's like, he's like, like, sorry, had to expand dominance. You know these things.
You understand. And then you've got Neil, who is the third member of the trio, he's tricked into thinking it's science camp. So he's this 10-year-old kid who is this intellectual. He wants to be in a science lab. He wants to be in this air conditioning science lab, and hates the outdoors and all this stuff. And he's like the most innocent kid to the point, like, he would behave. Like, he was never like this, but then he swears. And like, he'll be like, fuck this shit, and he leaves, and you're just like, it's so crazy. And when they were doing these character concepts, originally David was supposed to be the cynical camp counselor. Gwen, we get a little bit of it, but she still kind of does her job. David was supposed to be Max's archetype of the cynical guy, cynical teenager who hates his job.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then they realized, they're like, fuck that, why don't we just make it the 10-year-old? And Max became Max.
Max. Let's just talk about Max for a second,
Max.
because Max is amazing. Max is like, if Max is like, if Daria and Huey from the Boondocks had a kid, that would be Max. Like,
he's voiced by Michael Jones, who, if you don't know Michael Jones, he's part of Achievement Hunter, who is another subsidiary of Rooster Teeth. Look up Rage Quit. He's the Rage Quit guy. He's the voice is Max, and
that makes a lot of sense, actually.
And Max is this 10-year-old who's just like, fuck the world, this is bullshit, blah blah blah. But he says things. There's a certain episode where they overthrow the camp, and he starts screaming these buzzwords: 9/11, fight the power, fight the machine. We are the 99%. And he says all these things that he doesn't actually understand.
Yeah, no, it's like clearly just like, it's a lot of like kind of like anarchist-ish like buzzwords and shit.
A lot of buzzwords, and he has that kind of outlook on life where he hates the world, but he doesn't actually understand it. Or he thinks he does.
Right. And in certain ways is a little bit more realistic than everybody, but then kind of takes it that step too far that like everything's absolutely terrible.
Right.
I mean, which the show does one of the things that I really enjoy is nihilism with a sense of so what.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of my life philosophies is, yes, it is all totally meaningless and pointless. So why be a dick about it?
Right. Exactly. Why not just, fucking enjoy it?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Right.
no, and actually, like, Rooster Teeth kind of has like a lot of that. Like, even with Ruby, it's got like, a lot of those elements of like, yeah, there is kind of just a lot of meaningless death and chaos and horrible things happening. But it doesn't mean that you should just totally give up.
Right. Ruby is a very optimistic outlook on life.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And I mean, Camp kind of ends that way.
It does.
I think it's aimed at nihilists to kind of be like, hey, dude, chill the fuck out.
Have a little fun sometimes.
Yeah. And you all should definitely have a lot of fun with Rooster Teeth. I'm gonna be checking out more of it because those guys have gotten really, really impressive. I can't believe the same guys who had the conversation about the fact that light red is pink.
Yeah.
That one I still did enjoy the second time around. It's a great
it as a running
conversation.
joke.
Yeah. But no, they've really developed some fantastic things. Yeah, we'll probably wind up when Ruby season 4 drops. We'll definitely be talking about that because I love that show. It's so good.
And if you're not into animation, they have a bunch of live action shows. They always have their live action skits, but they have a bunch of live action shows. One is Day 5, which I think you can only watch if you're a sponsor, which kind of sucks, but I think it's worth it. I'm a sponsor. Day 5 is basically everybody, if you it comes to an apocalyptic point where if you fall asleep, you die. And so it's it's a small group of people who are trying not to fall asleep.
That's awesome.
It's pretty good. And then you've got Crunch Time that they just started, which is about 4 grad students who create a rift in time and space, basically. And they're
you were telling me about this one, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's really good. The first 2 episodes are on YouTube, and they're only 20 minutes long. You will want to continue watching.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to check that out because that sounds pretty
one.
phenomenal. Anyway, we've hit our 30-minute mark, so we're going to be getting going here. This has been the Geek for All. We'll probably be back next week. I'm thinking it's October. We got to do a Halloween episode.
Yes.
We're going to be back with some Halloween talk, some horror movies, some Halloween classics. But until then, you guys have yourselves a wonderful evening. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The music for the Geek for All show has been provided by Fat Street Beats, Ben Sound, and Purple Planet. Please support their individual pages.